To no one will we sell, to no one deny or delay right or justice.
Anything you like, be free. Oh, he winces, regroups.
Imagine taking away women's right to vote.
And reader, I left him. I also left the door of the freezer open.
High walls, built to keep you out, not in.
First, release the princess. Throw open the castle gate.
But we made our own liberation the best way we could. If we had the pill, we'd have been unstoppable, she says.
Never apologise. Never hide. Never let hate be unopposed. I'm Cherry Potts and I run Arachne Press, and this is one of quite a few little short video pieces that I'm doing around all of the books that we've ever published, because it's our 8th anniversary, and being named after a spider, 8 is an important number to us. You can keep your 10th anniversaries, 8. Anyway, so I'm going to talk to you today about Liberty Tales. This started off as an event, and we decided it was too good an idea to let go. So in, whenever it was, 2015, it was the 800th anniversary of the first Magna Carta. There were, I think, 5, I'm guessing, more than 3 anyway. And so we decided that we would celebrate with stories, poems and songs on the subject of liberty. Not freedom, liberty. And it was fun. It was great fun, and we had songs and we had some really very nice stories, but not enough for a book. So we kept the call going and decided that liberty is for life, not just a convenient anniversary. And we got some funding from the Arts Council to tour, and we trogged around the country. We went to Oxford, we went to Bath, we went to various places in Essex, thank you Essex Libraries, and the authors read wonderfully. We had a lovely time at Houseman's, and we also had a lot of fun with designing this book, because I don't know how clear it is on here, but that is your actual Magna Carta on the cover, and each segment of the book fits to one. We haven't covered all of them, but some of the more interesting clauses, I think they're called chapters in it, but clauses, sort of a recognised term. So for each of those we have the actual thing in Latin and then a translation, and with the Magna Carta fading in and out at the top and bottom as well. So it was such a visual book in the end that we actually had to include a picture. We would have included more, but we couldn't find the right pictures, or we couldn't get anybody to admit to owning the copyright to them. So this is the only picture that actually went in, which is for Brian Johnston's The Branded Hand. Such a powerful image, such a powerful story. Brian did a magnificent job with it, and I have a video of him reading that.
So the next poem is also based on a photograph which Sherry has wonderfully managed to source and print in the book. Now, you'll not be able to see it from here, but this is a photograph of a single hand. I'll read you what's written on the back of that particular picture. This daguerreotype was taken August 1845. It is a copy of Captain Jonathan Walker's hand as branded by the US Marshal of the District of Florida for having helped 7 men to obtain life, liberty and happiness. SS, Slave Saviour, Northern District. SS, Slave Stealer, Southern District. Branded hand. They printed this in Florida, a slave state still in 45. It's Marshall with the power to mark a man for life. Yet he can't have lived for long till someone in New England passed comment on his scars, desired that he submit again to steel that clamped the arm, lest movement spoil the plate and new technology distort the marks that he displayed. His palm extended, opened to their lens. As it had been to coals, to branding irons, the double S that found him in the south. Slave stealer, thief of someone's property he only saw as fellow men in need. But in the north, a saviour offering the chance for freedom, crossing borders meant to those who'd borne the scars or more themselves, in multitudes, unrecorded, never photographed, but fixed, as is this single print in time, a record of its hand.
I think possibly the poems are, for me, the strongest things in this, but there are some corking stories. Wide variety of stories. We have dogs on the loose, we have fantasy, we have history, we have fishing weirs. Thank you, Nick Rawlinson, for taking up the baton for that one.
He walked to the edge of the river, peered upstream, downstream, then nodded. Yes, I thought so. Well, we're here. Finally, Bennett said. He knelt down and opened the tackle box and began selecting a float, pinching together lead shot beneath his stubby fingers. So, do you see it? Bennett's grandad nodded at the river. What? I said. That? There. I followed his gaze, but there was only the slow shift of the river and the flickering silver blue dance of the reflected sky. I don't see anything. Bennett's grandad grinned wildly, like I'd said exactly the right thing. Yes, he said, that's the point. Wait, Bennett said, you mean we just walked a mile across a bloody field to look at something that isn't here? Language, lad, his grandad said, although you're right in a way, blood may have been spilled here because of that. He nodded again. Something that isn't here, I said. Exactly, he said. Then, when he'd held the moment as long as he could without looking weird, well, weirder at least, he rubbed his hands together and chuckled. As far as I can make out from local records, this used to be the site of a fish weir.
And we have people trapped by language. All sorts of things in here. Lovely book. Very proud of it. Very proud of how well it ended up going around the world. There's somebody talking really out loudly outside in the street. So I will leave it there. We will have this on sale throughout August. We'll take £1 off. So instead of £8.99, it will be instead of £9.99, it will be £8.99. And we'd be delighted if you were to buy a copy. Liberate a copy, but pay for it. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Now then, about this cow, Daisy. As he said the cow's name, he looked pained. Buck reckoned that in the business of selling beasts for breeding or the table, names did not come into it much. This young man, here he indicated Reese, believes he has a solution to our dilemma. Simmer down, and you, Mr. Jones. 3 points. 1. As you gentlemen know, Ludlow was, is, and always will be the principal town of the Marches. There was a rumble of agreement. Point 2. It seems from ancient treaty that disputes when Welshmen or Englishmen, or English women, have been, what was it? He consulted Rees and, smiling broadly, continued, have been deprived or dispossessed of something without the lawful judgment of their equals, whether in England or Wales, we have to give it them back. Point 3. In the case of dispute, it's the law of the marches that decides it. Clear?
Black and white from a photograph of Nazi troops in occupied Crete. It's what they might be saying in casual conversation chills the blood. Only one man eyes the camera, while others glance at Cretans stepping past them in the street with what to read their faces in the photograph is contempt. The bulk, backs turned away, engage with comrades' heads inclined to listen, while here and there a smile is on a face. All chatting, maybe talking of their homes outside this requisition caffeneon, signed in Gothic script. Each character is brutal, a black and white assertion of command, each one a signal of the future this village can expect, its fate to be reluctant host to the Soldatenheim, a home from home for those at once detested and opposed. The thoughts these men in summer uniform, shorts to combat drowsy heat, exchanged there in the village, are lost. As we're all of fighting age, in village after village, shot upon the ridge, inscribed with names in black and white. And in amongst the widows' homes, few left whole, was thrust this soldier's home, inciting hatred and defiance in the Cretans passing by, eyes fixed dead ahead with what to read faces in the print is much more than just contempt.
The joke was that I'd mistaken a dismay of ragbag rough sleepers for bargain hunters. Why else might someone curl up on the hard ground outside a department store? Stanley laughing was a bad sign. Too often his chuckles tended to slither into sneers and slaps. I had learnt it was best to say nothing, ask for nothing, for I did indeed need nothing. I belonged beside the Arga, while the city was Stanley's domain. Up west was not for the likes of me, apart from the annual November hell of a Masonic ladies' night. Ironically, it was an overnight Masonic jamboree that gave me the idea. All the wives had a spa session, while their other halves bared their calves in ceremonial bonding games. Embarrassed by my lumpen flesh, I declined massages and the like, but found delight in hiding my flab in the steam room or submerged in the glorious hot tub before huddling beneath a fluffy, free white towel upon a lounger. I fell asleep, and when I woke I thought, I could live like this.
As I was coming back through the Calais port, we were seriously delayed, along with many, many, many other people. And eventually we eased our way in towards getting onto the ferry, but it was evident that there were people trying to jump onto the lorries, and they were being manhandled rather severely by the police, and it really upset me. And that was compounded by the journey, because I sat there watching people and listening to snippets of conversation, and I got really upset. I watched body language, I watched facial expressions, and I heard people saying things. And when I got home, I did what writers do. I wrote something, and I wrote this poem. And I was actually more angry by the time I'd finished the poem, and decided that gone were the days of sitting and talking about things over a drink or a cup of coffee. I was actually going to do something. It was the midwife to Bath Welcomes Refugees. The privilege of departure. or Dover-bound, but delayed. Packed to bursting, a people carrier plus top box rumbles up the ramp and rolls to a halt in a designated bay. Doors fly open. A crude bass line, kiddie babble, shrill instructions, a curse, a whine, fall onto the car deck to mingle with echoey engine thrums and a tinny tannoy heckle that warns foot passengers again and again and again to watch out for moving vehicles. The disgorging hordes drift upward to cafes and bars, upper decks, window seats, railside spots, to watch the landmass diminish to a dismal smudge, to complain at the delay. Queues are long on board, 10 minutes to get an insipid coffee, substandard sandwich, a cake of cardboard texture, and dietary dissent subverts a frail, must enjoy every last minute mania. Peacemaker types pull phones from pockets, click on holiday snaps, flick them back and forth, tip and tilt them for portrait, for landscape, for the best effect to distract the disgruntled diners. A determined few persist in chewing over their particular miseries, and talk turns to pernickety bosses and the tedium of employment, to first days of the new school year and teachers with imagined grudges. A couple pore over a pile of receipts, reminders of overindulgences only ever condoned in euros, and they panic. A cat is fretted over, shrilly. How would it have been for her 2 weeks in a cattery? She'll have to do an extra night now. Mum engages with the horizon and sniffs. Dad bemoans the added outlay. Their 10-year-old grumbles, get a grip, his eyes fixed on a smartphone. The call comes for a return to the Cardex. A swarm of beings tanned and dishevelled speeds to arrive as one at narrow portals en route to the ship's bowels. Eye contact stops, shoulders dip, and the rush is on. Because being the first to one's car matters. Thank you.
If you tip water into my mouth, I will drink. If you place a morsel of food in my mouth, I will chew and swallow. These are involuntary actions, necessary, but of no importance. They do not distract me from my purpose, which is to think. I was trained from an early age to perform this function, trained to memorise, to calculate, and to compute. My brain has been honed into a perfect machine, dedicated to solving the king's problems, however banal. I do not need light to think. I do not need soft beds, or fresh air, or music. I avoid these distractions by operating in a room deep beneath the castle. Once it was a wine cellar. It is dark and stays the same temperature all year round. The single entrance is kept locked, and only those with legitimate access are permitted to enter. I do not sleep while I am thinking. I am trained to rest different parts of my brain so as to keep a chain of thought alive. But when I have no problems to solve, I do little other than sleep. It allows me to build new connections between data and conclusions, and helps me tackle future problems. I woke from such a sleep as the cellar door creaked open. A light approached, a candle in a pewter holder, painfully bright to my sensitive eyes. I did not recognise the girl who stood before me. "Are you the King's computer?" she asked. "I am," I confirmed. "And you can answer any question?" "No," I replied. I could have left it at that, but if I have a fault, it is pride in my abilities. So I explained to her why her question was wrong. I am not omniscient. Some questions require information I do not have, and so I must ask for that information before I can answer. She nodded. "What is love?" It was not the sort of question I was asked.
And I was fascinated by the Wigtown Martyrs Memorial, which commemorates the death of two women who refused to take an oath of allegiance to the king as the head of the church. They said only God could be the head of the church, the king couldn't be. And so they tied them out in the estuary to stakes. They put the older woman considerably further forward than the younger woman in the hopes that when she drowned, the younger woman would repent. And having been to the bay and seen the posts, like Burnley, how you deal with it is go and write about them, so this is what I wrote. Wigtown Bay, 1685. Two women are tied to posts at the mouth of the Blednock stream to stand till the flood overflows them and they drown. By the time the seawater swells the channels of Blednock and Cree, runs through the cracks in salt marsh blocks, covers the purslane and samphire, the arrowgrass, scurvy grass, aster, the women's mouths and lungs will be full, and the psalms the young one was singing stoppered. The blizzard of Arctic birds that wintered on the Merse are moving on. A few grey lags pluck the grass. The white-cheeked barnacles have gone, and the last lines of pinkfoot drift across the sky, heading for Greenland. Craters of shell cling under the driftwood, seaweed streaming downwards from open mouths, life hanging. At sunrise, the hunter lowers his gun as two geese break through the water's sheen. Underwings gleaming, they wheel into the sun.
Tabernacle Lane. A list of men waiting, found tiny in the classifieds. The bouncer smiles. Let the music decide. To dare to dance with divine, be sure of every cheap reaction. Take pride in his hand, step on stage, a couple of shoulders to trespass on. Here's what my mother never did tell me, how that velvet staircase awaits, lit by the pulse of treacherous fairy lights, leads to what can't be seen in the dark. Wipe armpit sweat with a Kleenex to hurl at the howling crowd. Never apologise, never hide, never let hate be unopposed. O is the story of Bobby O, Mr. GQ man, desperate for a pen, desperate for a telephone number, his bloom of future possibilities. Thrown from scorched roofs, strung on barbed wire, blitzed in the dance of Saturday night. For love and love and love and
"Who's that talking?" she asks, and I look round. She's right. There was someone there for a moment. I don't know, I say. Why would I know? Hold up, she says. There it is again. Where's it coming from? I look round again. What does it look like, that voice? Even through the crackles and the deep sea echo, there's a change to her voice, crisper, not to be argued with. I know where it is. It's just behind me, in my blind spot. If I were to turn quickly, I'd catch it, but I don't want to turn. Don't want to look. If you did look, what would you see? She says patiently. Nothing, I say. What kind of nothing? A big nothing, which can eat me alive with the acid of its contempt. That's some kind of nothing, she says. Kind of scary. She's doing it again. Mind reading. Yes, I said. Yes, I'm scared of it. What can it do to you? She asks. What can't it do? It can destroy me. Are you listening? She asks. To what? I ask, hardly able to hear her over the hornet drone of hate in my other ear. She sighs. Of course she does. She's wasting her time with me. There's nothing she can do to untangle my snare. Swat that wasp, she says, and a folded newspaper appears at my elbow. It's too big, I whisper. How big is too big, she asks, as the newspaper grows and grows until it's too heavy to lift. How about making it smaller instead? What would it be like if it was a teensy-weensy gnat? The hornet voice recedes to a whine, high-pitched, evil, dangerous, mosquito deadly.
Now remember, said Endersby, the magic ends at midnight. If you're not back by then, you'll be leaving your knackers in that tray. Hassan smiled. He says that to all the girls. Try and be a good boy now. Yes, boss. Fry grinned and gave them a thumbs up. They let him out via the airlock. Sudden oxygen. A drizzle-flecked car park dotted with staff wheels. It was a short walk to the barrier, past the HMP logo, then a longer trudge to the bus stop, where half a dozen day releases were already waiting. Grown men with hardened lives and hardened bodies, joshing like teenagers. After the bus ride, a railway carriage. Cooling towers looming over the fens. Civilian commuters clutching at their bags, staring at the floor or out of the window. Anywhere but at the day releases lolling on adjoining seats. Their banter wrapped up a notch for the occasion, loving the effect they were having on a world that had shut them up for so long. He sat with the group, keeping silent. An old lady caught his eye. He shook his head and smiled. She turned away, relieved. An elbow poked his ribs. Where you going today, pretty boy? It was Gannon, local lad, multiple GBH. College reunion, said Fry. Gannon shook his mangy head and smiled. Well, I'll be buggered. So am I. Small world, said Fry.
I was born to know you and to name you. I write you in the sand and snow on every page I read, on the white sheets of lovemaking, on the crowns of kings and their weapons of mass destruction. I write you on the echoes of my childhood, on nests and bushes, on wondrous nights of starlight, on the moon swimming in the loch, on the wings of birds, on the beating pulse of windmills. I write you on the first drawn breath of dawn, on the white foam of the clouds and the grey, insipid rain. I write you on every wakening path, on every opening gate. I write you among the scattered rocks on demented mountains. I write you on the threshold of my door, in the fire's sacred stream, on the lamp when it gives light, on the lamp when it is doused. I write you on my bed's empty shell, on my mirror and my reflected room. I write you on my dog, on her listening ears and her clumsy paws. I write you on the ravaged refugees, on all the dispossessed, on their fallen walls, the naked solitude, on all that has become absent for them. I write you on health regained, on danger past, on memory and hope. I was born to know you and to name you.
Raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day. A million darkened kitchens, 1,000 millocks grey, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching, we bring the greater days. For the rising of the women means the rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, tender toil where one reposes, but the sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient cry for bread. Small art or love or beauty, their hungry spirits knew. Yes, it is the bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 millocks grey, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun